And boom, here we are. It's part 3 of our Who Was the Man trilogy. We are about to do 2010 to 2020. That's right, we're doing 2020, even though we're half through 2020. Don't come at me, I decided to do it, and there's nothing you can do about it. And if you want to catch up, make sure you see part 1, make sure you see part 2, where again, we looked at financials, we looked at statistics, we looked at in-ring power, and we decided, oh yeah, in this certain year, this person was definitely the man. Let's go. Hence number 11, John Cena in 2010. While this year's WrestleMania number was a little bit disappointing, when John Cena and Batista, there he is again, started to embark in a war on WWE's B pay-per-views, well, money started to creep up and people actually started to seem interested again. And yes, I know, I remember what one of the finishes was involving duct tape, which was one of the silliest things I'd ever seen in my life. And this was also the year when the Nexus were taken and buried so far underground that they were disbanded far longer than they should have been. But once again, we're talking about money here. You're talking about merchandise, you're talking about TV ratings, you're talking about gates, you're talking about house show business. I've already said it, I'll say it again. I don't know what WWE would have done if it wasn't for John Cena. Everybody just kept coming because they wanted to see the man who couldn't be seen. That is some wonderful irony. Number 10, CM Punk in 2011. Now, yes, lots of people like to go, well, numbers didn't go through the roof after the pipe bomb promo in 2011, but nobody was more organically over. Nobody got more people re-interested in WWE, and nobody was kicking as much ass as one CM Punk. And if you need some stats and numbers to back that up, Money in the Bank 2011 did 17% better business than the one before. That, my friends, counts as an up. He was the talk of the industry throughout these mid-year months, managed to outsell John Cena of all people when it came to merchandise, and I remember a bunch of my old school wrestling fans getting in touch going, dude, who's this CM Punk guy? Is he actually saying these things for real? I'm massively interested. And the only reason this became a huge bomb and a huge disaster is because somebody rang up Kevin Nash and said that he had to get involved. He brought a level of match quality and acclaim to world wrestling entertainment that we hadn't seen in ages, and this is a hill that I would die on. CM Punk did everything that he had to do, but he just didn't get the backing of the office. But even then, still the man. Number 9, Hiroshi Tanahashi in 2012. If Tanahashi's goal in 2012 was to take every single person beneath him and elevate them up to his level so that New Japan had proper stars that other people could now feud with, well, he smashed that, and he smashed it so damn hard. It was also one of the first times we saw the potential of somebody known as OKADA, and once again that was thanks to the ace. And the crazy mini classic he had with Suzuki, well, you already know what that was like. It was just two bonkers people going at it. It was also Tanahashi that was responsible for New Japan slowly starting to climb up the ladder again, which is exactly the reason they're having success today. And he would not only set but maintain the in-ring level of quality you had to have, even to say you're a professional wrestler. It was all because of him. Number 8, KAZUCHIKA Okada in 2013. In 2013, Okada went from a guy who everybody was like, oh my gosh, he's such a prodigy, he has so much potential, to getting to a world caliber level. I mean, early on in the year, he was able to go on and win the IWGP Championship, and every single time, numbers kept going up, especially when it came to attendances. Everybody wanted to see the badass. It was also when we started to see these psychological masterclasses that now he has absolutely perfected. Like, even if he goes for 45 minutes, the first 20 minutes of an Okada bout, they go quite slow and you settle into them, but then the last 15, 10, 5, especially the last 60 seconds, it's some of the best damn professional wrestling you've ever seen, and you can't figure out how he did it. It all started to kick off here. He also had 2 matches against Tanahashi in 2013, which are absolutely freaking brilliant. And really, this was the rise of Okada, and I would be a fool not to mention him. Number 7, AJ Styles in 2014. AJ Styles was so nuts 6 or so years ago that he said to WWE, well, you may be interested in me now, but you weren't interested in me in beforehand, so even though I'm leaving TNA, I have decided to go to New Japan, and I am going to be so good. And I am going to just mesmerize the wrestling industry to such a degree that in a couple of years, you're gonna come begging and you're gonna offer me loads of money. And that's exactly what he did. I mean, he won the flipping IWGP Championship on his first night in and then had a run in the G1 Climax tournament, which was so otherworldly, everyone was like, wait. We knew he had skill, but this is something else. He also proved that he could be a tremendous heel, slap down anyone that said he couldn't cut a promo, and while Daniel Bryan would of course run him close, he had a massive injury setback, and I don't want to talk about that because it makes me sad. Either way, AJ Styles, he lit the world on fire. A Talked about fire a lot. Number 6, Brock Lesnar in 2015. No matter what you want to say about Brock Lesnar destroying The Undertaker's streak at WrestleMania 30, what it did do was all of a sudden make sure every single eye on the planet was on Brock Lesnar, and he followed up on that by going to SummerSlam and completely ruining John Cena. It meant come the following year, he was an absolute kind of ironic beast. I mean, he rose like a flipping monster from the depths during that incredible triple threat match at the Royal Rumble against John Cena and Seth Rollins, and I tell you, nobody had any expectations for his clash with Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 31, but even if you go watch that today, it is so hard-hitting, it is so brutal, Roman Reigns probably ate for around about 3 years afterwards. He just gets punched in the face. He then went on to have another great run with The Undertaker a few months later, and he just had this aura around him where you were like, well, nobody can beat Brock Lesnar. He's too damn good. And because of that, he was a star, and because of that, people went into their pockets and chucked money at him. It was as real as wrestling had ever looked, especially in WWE, and it's the fumes he's still riding off today. Number 5, Tetsuya Naito in 2016. The best thing about Naito in 2016 is that his big holding back point was that he wasn't able to engage with crowds. There was just something about his character, something about his personality. So when he invented this tranquilo persona and all of a sudden everybody loved him more than anybody else in the company, it filled me with glee and it made my heart smile. He felt like some cool teenager, which was in direct contrast to like the dads Tanahashi and Okada, and because of that everybody started to get behind him because again he felt like a badass. His matches were also a spectacle even though they were unhinged, and by the time you got to the end of the year, while other stars may have been higher up the card, there was only one question on everybody's lips: when does Naito come out? Because that's who I've come to see. Number 4, Kenny Omega in 2017. This, of course, comes down to the absolute classics that Kenny Omega and Okada did engage in throughout the entire year. I mean, they had one at Wrestle Kingdom, then they were doing it later on during the summer. Kenny Omega basically tore up the rule book about what you thought professional wrestling was, and he just kept getting better and better. And in the ring, he just kept moving faster and faster. His blonde curly hair you could barely make out because he was zooming around the ring like Sonic. He also proved himself to be a huge draw to North American audiences, given that when he came home to do shows, everybody was desperate to see him. But it also went the other way, because when these fans found out, oh, he does a lot of work in New Japan, they went out of his way to watch him, and that made everybody else a damn star. It's exactly what the company was trying to do at the time, and I tell you this, I've told you before, I tell you again, without Kenny Omega, New Japan may not be as popular over here or in the West as it actually is. All because of the cleaner. Number 3, Becky Lynch in 2018. One of those situations that seemed so awful at the time, but in hindsight was the greatest thing to ever happen. When Becky Lynch had her nose exploded by Nia Jax and was subsequently taken out of the main event of Survivor Series, it looked like it was going to be doom and gloom. But instead, she became the man and became one of the biggest assets in all of World Wrestling Entertainment. Connecting with the audience, even though the powers that be wanted to turn her heel, Becky Lynch was able to engage with everyone to such a degree that soon she had a new nickname which ties into this list because, of course, as you already know, she started calling herself The Man. She also had a string of great matches, cut some ferocious promos, and also set herself up to become one of the first women ever to main event WrestleMania the following year, but without 2018, that ain't happening. Number 2, Chris Jericho in 2019. I would say that Cody ran Chris Jericho awfully close last year, but when all was said and done, how could you not give it to the former Ayatollah of rock and roller? This all really comes down to the amount of business he was doing both in AEW, but also in New Japan. He carried on having these amazing matches with the likes of Naito, which once more decided more American fans to get invested, and he was the biggest coup when it came to All Elite Wrestling, with a bunch of Laps fans going, well, if Le Champion, wasn't even called that then, but if Le Champion is going to go to these new people, maybe I'll tune in. He also managed to reinvent his character once again, and I actually think this may be the best version of Chris Jericho, and what the hell would the world be today without a little bit of the bubbly? You could also argue this was the first time he was properly allowed to be a main event player, because he was always held back a little bit in WWE, and right now he's doing some of his best work at almost the age of 50. You cannot debate this one. Number 1, Kenny Omega in 2020. As of this point. I mean, you can go many ways with this, but given that a lot of people think that Kenny Omega was involved in the best tag team wrestling match they've ever seen, well, I'm happy to give it to him, especially because people on the internet keep saying mean things. He was also massively responsible for everything that went down at the Stadium Stampede match, which is one of my favourites, because he used everything he learned in DDT, quick aside, go watch DDT, they're hilarious, and managed to pace it onto the American stage. Both of these matches were able to get AEW a pay-per-view buy rate over 100,000 buys, and don't stick your nose up at that, and he also had that singles match with Pac on Dynamite, which is so good, I think some people have forgotten. He's also about to unleash his cleaner persona in a brand new promotion, and for this bald asshole, I think that's very exciting. I know we've still got 6 months to go, because this can change, but right now, I'm going with Ken. Which brings us to the end of our trilogy. You probably disagree with some of the things that we said, but just let us know in the comments below. Then like the video, share the video, subscribe to What Culture Wrestling. Then head over to whatculture.com and read yourself some articles. Follow What Culture on Twitter, What Culture WWE, and watch more videos here on What Culture Wrestling. My name is Simon from What Culture. Thank you for joining me. I'll see you soon.